Welcome back, guys, into the Fantasy F1 cockpit. This is your captain speaking, and we're going to be going over what happened in a very wet Australian Grand Prix. Be sure to like and subscribe at the bottom for all future videos, recapping the races, as well as getting you ready for new race weekends. China's coming up tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. As well as follow us on the fantasysportsadvicenetwork.com website for all your fantasy sports needs, as well as download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store. We'll get right into it. So, looking at this weekend, it was, as promised, a wet and wild race with 6 rookies in the field, some of which finished and some veterans which didn't. So, getting right into it, we had a couple things to talk about when it came to our constructors. McLaren was exactly as promised. They looked quick in qualifying, they looked quick in the race. At one point, they even built a half-lap lead over Max Verstappen, which still seems to make a mediocre Red Bull car look very competitive up until all the safety cars came into effect, at which point everyone got bunched up and it was a race to the very end. So McLaren looking like a very solid constructor, and for right now, I think they're one of the few top constructors that we should be running going forward, just because both drivers already seem to have a good handle of that car, especially in tough conditions. You only expect it to get better when they get into drier and maybe less technical races. Haas was a bit of a surprise with how they looked. I know last year in the past they were a very fast car on the straights and not so good in the low speed corners. It seemed to be a complete opposite of that in Australia. The car didn't look competitive at all. They were kind of very fortunate that as many cars were crashing out as they did, as I think that's where a lot of their points came through. Whether that was just a setup for a wet race where they put a higher downforce setup on it remains to be seen. China expects to give us more details on that. But one positive with the Haas team is they had a faster pit stop last weekend in Australia than they had all last year. Based on how they went last year, they wouldn't have scored more than 2 points in any given race weekend for their pit stops. Last weekend, they scored 5 points, which is more than they would score all last week. So that is a plus, and that makes them a very good budget option to be getting pit stop points that way, as long as both drivers are able to keep it on the track. Sauber was also a much more competitive car than I think a lot of people were expecting them to be. They brought a lot of upgrades with them to Australia. Having Hulkenberg, a veteran piece, to help them get a handle on that car seems to be paying off pretty well. And Bortoleto honestly looked very good until his ultimate exit early out of the Australian Grand Prix. But Hulkenberg getting big points for Sauber. I believe they already have more points in this past weekend's race than they had all last year. So the nice thing to be seeing with Sauber is, as much as there was 6 teams that had drivers not finish the race, as well as some teams that had some unfortunate calls with regards to late safety cars, looking at you, Ferrari. These are points where if Sauber can keep getting points like this throughout the season, it's going to add up. And ultimately, mistakes are going to happen. Ferrari seems to have horrible strategy calls, and it seems to be nothing new. It's continuing. So being able to take advantage of opportunities is going to be huge for this Sauber team, as a lot of us likely have the doubles of Hulkenberg and Bortoleto just because they are such a budget team. I don't know if we want to be running them as a constructor yet going forward, but it definitely looks like that's something that could be happening. So we'll talk about more team building stuff in a future video getting ready for China. But just as a recap, Sauber was definitely a surprise. Something with Haas too I want to talk about. This is a team that fantasy is funny. You don't need them to do well in real life. You just need them to perform and get us points. Haas is such a budget-friendly team that when we go into the website here to see how they get us points, like in Esteban Ocon here, so for Haas, he finished in 13th there, qualified in 19th. For a bottom feeder team, this is what we want. If he's not going to get out of Q1, I want him to be dead last, because these are going to be positions gained points and gives us potential for overtake points. We just want you to qualify poorly, get a few overtakes, gain some positions. Ultimately, these 6 positions for Behrman, as sad as it is, was due to every single driver that crashed out. So all the drivers that crashed out ended up being his positions gained. But points is points. We're not going to complain about that. Ultimately, yeah, the Q have not classified for qualifying hurts a little bit, as he could have had 7 points. But for budget building teams, that's really all we want to see. And then looking at how Haas did as a team, obviously, all the drivers were not getting points for getting out of qualifying ultimately. Not having a single driver in Q2 is only a -1 point, which is completely fine. We can kind of deal with that as it's only -1, but total positions gained is 12. And fastest pit stop being a 5 points is something we weren't seeing last year. So that was very, very, very important. And yeah, so that's all for this. Moving on to talking about drivers specifically. So there's quite a few rookies here that I'm showing you. Jack Doohan, as much as he didn't finish this race, I thought he looked very good leading up to the race. Very unfortunate he didn't get to show off. I believe he was the one that won this in FP2 last year in Australia. And he looked fast in qualifying up until a very unfortunate late safety car in Q2 there was the only reason he couldn't be more competitive than he was. But he looked fast up until that point. He had been keeping up with Pierre Gasly, who is a very experienced driver at this point. So for him, that early to look that fast was very promising. He was someone that I didn't have on a lot of my teams, but I'd be very happy to sidestep to him going forward as well. Kimi Antonelli had a great day. I think he got absolutely robbed not being given driver of the day, starting, I believe it was at 16th, moving all the way up to 4th. Part of that due to some luck from some safety cars, but that's Formula One, that's racing, it's going to happen. We'll have middle of the pack teams win some races due to the timely events of safety cars, as well as maybe leaders crashing out once they start getting racy. But Kimi Antonelli delivered a really good drive. Both him and Liam Lawson are the rookies driving for top constructors. So there were high expectations for them to perform. And one of these guys just consistently made up positions throughout the race in very tough conditions, as well as took the opportunities when they were there. Ferrari made a poor call around the safety car that allowed Antonelli to gain so many positions, and penalty or not at the end, whether it was supposed to happen, to have even a top 5 finish in your first race, absolutely fantastic. I don't think this is going to be every weekend because I do think there was some luck involved, but this is a young guy who, especially early on, if he's going to be making mistakes in quali where he can be starting below, but he's a guy that can be consistent enough in the race where each mistake isn't going to hurt him too much. He's just going to slowly get his overtakes, positions, gain points. That's going to be a lot of points for a lot of people in a lot of weeks. Again, I don't think it's going to be P4 every week. I expect Ferrari to be a little bit better in their positions. Piastri's not going to spin out going from 2nd to 9th as well. So there's going to be at least, maybe he's not finishing 4th, but maybe he's fighting for 7th on a pretty regular basis. And I think that's all we need from him, especially for the budget that he is. I don't really think a lot of teams where he's your anchor for a lot of weeks is going to pay off, but who knows? We could have more weeks with as many rookies causing trouble. There could be a lot more just opportune luck coming for a lot of races. So Kimi had a great race. I think he should have been driver of the day. Very unfortunate he didn't. The other one, Liam Lawson, had just a dreadful race. He didn't feel comfortable in the call at any point in the race weekend. People are using the excuse, oh, he's never raced here before, he's the only one that hasn't, and it's already a difficult track. I get that, but at the same time, you've raced at a high level, you've raced in F1 before. It was just a horrible outing for Liam Lawson in what was supposed to be a top car. When your partner finishes second and you finish pretty well last, it is absolutely dreadful. So he has a lot of pressure on him going forward. He cannot be owned on any fantasy teams going forward right now, especially with how price changing works, because this negative score he got this weekend is carrying with him for the next few weeks. His value is only going to be dropping, so you cannot have him on your team at least for the next 2 weeks. Maybe going forward, his value may be going up if he does well in China in the next week, but this is going to hurt him. He's only going to drop value for a team. If you don't care about budget, feel free to keep him, but I just can't suggest it. Talking about the last one here, Max Verstappen, reigning world champion. He did as we almost kind of expected him to. We weren't sure where his car was going to rank up with the likes of Mercedes, with the likes of Ferrari, or even the Williams this weekend, but once again, he has shown that he doesn't need the best car to cause a little bit of trouble for everyone. He was all over Norris the last couple laps of this race. Ultimately, some luck because of a safety car. He was half a lap behind both McLarens before that safety car, where everyone was trying to change over to slicks and then back over to inters. So should he have finished third? Yes, which is completely fine for him in a car that we hope can get a little bit better, and maybe he has a teammate to help him attack in the future. But all in all, this was a fine race, and for someone who is even a few million cheaper than Norris, maybe this is the way to go. But I will say, driver of the day status is absolutely overpowered in this game. Max will not win driver of the day, I don't think, at all this season, just because he's a three-time world champion. People expect it of him. They're not impressed by him anymore. Everyone is infatuated with Lando Norris. And as we saw this past weekend, even when he really didn't have to do too much, just really hold where he was in the race, that's enough to get driver of the day. So to me, that bonus makes Lando Norris absolutely overpowered in F1 Fantasy this year, as he's going to get a pile of driver of the day bonuses just for being Lando, a lovable Lando. That's all it's going to be. Whether he races well or not, I could see him winning at least half of them this year. And 10 points is a lot. That's as much for fastest lap. It is absolutely overpowered. It's way too overvalued here in fantasy. I think that needs to be adjusted in future years. But as that's over half the score for some of the drivers each week. Yeah. So moving on to different things like strategies, things that happen in Australia, just looking at how maybe even some of the teams went this week. So I tried building 3 teams for you guys, one with a more constructor focus, one with a driver focus, and one with a budget focus. Obviously, it was a very sloppy weekend with these teams. I used a combination of the budget and the constructor in a few of the different fun public leagues that people were doing just to see how each one fared. Obviously, the budget one got absolutely devastated. Mainly because, which one do I have this in? It's going to be over here. Mainly because of how it went with owning Triple Williams and having Sainz not finish. This definitely would have been a team that could have done fairly well with the no negative chip, but I didn't want to use it right away. I was already having issues getting my videos up, so I couldn't get a pre-Australia setup video, so I didn't want to use it just yet, as I wanted. This is likely what was going to happen for most people. So Oscar Piastri did have a good race. Now this -7, as I said, on a previous team, which I'll show you is my team that I run with all my family leagues, my friend leagues, is the one that I plan to be most competitive with. This -7, not the whole score, counts as a 0. So before it was just no negative, meaning you couldn't finish in the negative points. So I would have finished with 20 even with the no negative, whereas this year this -7 is taken away. So he finishes with 27 points, I guess, is how that would work out, even before the 2-time. Carlos Sainz would have taken away the negatives, so I would have race not classified. He would have given me a single point with that. Looking at Hadjar, he would have given me no points. Red Bull would have given me, so this race not classified here, a -20. For Red Bull would have been gone, so they would have given me 20 extra points, as well as same with Williams here, would have taken a no negative. And I want to say it likely would have been more. It might have been very overpowered for Williams, because not only would I have lost this -20, probably the positions gained and lost would also be there for Sainz, how you finish, the different things like that. Actually, that's nonsense. No, that's already classified in here. That's Sainz is -20. That's all he would have lost. This is it. So definitely would have helped that way. So another team with the constructor focus. So here's Piastri again. Carlos Sainz, I had him on a lot of my teams, really hurt me. Bortoleto, the -2, so he would have got me 2 points instead of -8. So a no negative last week would have been really, really beneficial, and McLaren would have even earned way more because of the 7 positions gained by Piastri. So after Australia, there are a few things. So the way that a lot of the drivers worked out going forward, the way the price scoring is going to work is, so anyone that got big negative points, because some people crashed out this week, because they're doing a race average, they're likely going to be still seeing budget decreases no, regardless of how China goes, they're likely still going to go down because they'll have one race where they're in negatives, one race where they're in positives. Maybe they're able to hold value, but I can almost guarantee they won't increase value this week. I know a lot of people are going to be panicking, trying to fix their teams. So I think it's going to be very important to hold, or depending on how your team is constructed, you may need to burn that wild card this week. I know a lot of people are doing that, but for anyone that is panicking on their team, do not, and I repeat, do not use any of your transfers without the wild card until after the practices, right up until the deadline. You're not doing it yet. Wait to see how they do in practice. You will make the few transfers you have the most effective. Don't do it. So, with that, don't do it. And yeah, so for those that want to use a wildcard this week, wait till my next video. We're going to be getting into things to expect for China, how we want to be building our teams, and overall just what it's going to be as far as strategy going forward. We expect it to be good weather in China. So for any of that will be in a future video. Really quick, why not? Let's, I just want to go through maybe some surprise teams here as to what kind of happened for how points were calculated for each team. So Ferrari ultimately had an okay race weekend. Looking at them, they only lost 3 race positions. A lot of this really came down to the call to stay out an extra lap, switching back to the inters. I really think that hurt them. Same with Max Verstappen. He might have actually had the lead for a lap or two should he have come in 1 lap sooner right after the McLaren spun and elected to change to their inters. Mercedes did have a really good race. I don't expect this to continue. Again, a lot of this came from, I think, some luck from Kimi Antonelli, as finishing 4th still gives you quite a bit of points, although I do expect him to be fighting more for like 6th, 7th, 8th going forward. So I think that's going to be important to note. I think even Russell got a little lucky with how Piastri slid down and how the Ferraris slid down. So I just don't want people to make any like rash decisions with their teams going forward just because of how Australia went. It was a difficult track. It's one race. It's because it's a wet race. We really didn't get to see all these cars in their finest form, as well as the rookies in their most aggressive forms because it was such a tricky track and it was so wet. Yeah, so I just want people to just take their time. We'll see what happens. And even here's the Haas team here. So even with just a few negative points here, race positions gained, all in all, not bad. It's 12. A lot of that is the number of drivers that never finished the race. But the 5 for the fastest pit stop is definitely promising. Looking at the Racing Bulls, again, a -10, knowing that they only had that 20 of those points were negative, also looked good for us. So part of it was race positions lost by Yuki. I think he qualified really well and kind of struggled in the race. I think he was another victim of how the pit stop, the late safety car, fell to them. But all in all, getting a driver into Q3, 5 points for fastest pit stop, a good qualifying position. I do think the Racing Bulls performed fairly well. Looking at Sauber here, race position 6 from Hulkenberg. Again, maybe a little bit of luck from some safety cars. But the fact that he was even in the position to take over for what might have been a lapse in strategy from bigger teams, that's going to help. That's going to come again in future races. Maybe not every weekend, but if he can do this every 5-6 races that happen 4 times, it's going to be huge, especially for the cheapest budget team. Race positions gained is always nice to see. Overtakes, really nice to see as well. I believe mostly those are Hulk, but Bortoleto had a nice weekend as well. Quickly looking here at Aston Martin, race not classified, definitely hurt them with Alonso, of all people, being the one. And you know what? Let's give a shout out to Lance Stroll, because honestly, I think only 9% of people had him on his team. I had him on one of my teams, which I'll show you here in a moment. But well done for Lance, fellow Patriot here. Had a good race, just overall a good race. He only had 1 overtake, but in a weekend where it's as wet and it's hard to be aggressive, that's really tough. And you know what? I'm tired of myself saying everything that Kimi did was luck. He had 8 overtakes in this race. So you know what? Kudos to Kimi. Definitely deserved to be as high as fourth. And you know what? 8 overtakes is a good amount. I know 2 of those were on the Sauber for Hulk, but that's more than can be said likely for the Ferraris. So you know what? I'm going to give Kimi much higher praise as Hamilton. Only 2 overtakes. Leclerc, how did he do? 5 overtakes. So Kimi Antonelli on his own had more on-track overtakes than all the Ferraris did combined. So Kimi, I apologize should you ever watch this. As much as I think you stumbled in a little bit of luck, you were quite excellent in this race with 8 race overtakes. So moving over to this team. So this is my fantasy team, I believe here. So looking at this team, going to go to completed race weekend. So 181 points with using a no negative. Let's see how that team looked. So this is the team I used the no negative on just because I want to be competitive. I want points right away. I want to lead right away, and I was scared of the weekend. So Piastri actually, with his no negative, as you can see here, the no negative 7 got cut away there. So that's huge right there because it's not just making sure I have a no negative score. It's actually taking away any negative scores gained. As you can see, signs, instead of a minus 19, I'm getting a point. And Stroll, shockingly, was the guy I thought might need it. Didn't. Hulkenberg didn't need it. Bortoletto getting me 2 points. McLaren gets all the way up to 78, and Williams gets me up to 30. So with this team, we're doing quite well. 181 points. I'll go over in future videos what I plan to change for this team, but very exciting to see. There's all my team names. Feel free to enjoy those. You can see my global rank there on the bottom, as well as my value of my team. I imagine a lot of people got hurt by it this weekend, but feel free to look forward to future videos. We're going to China next for a good warm racing weekend. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you later. Once again, follow the fantasysportsadvicenetwork.com or get the app. Hit the bell, like, subscribe. We'll see you in future videos. See ya.